without wasting time, I will give a brief context before we start the event. Samson, are we good? Samson is saying 1 minute. And we are also excited to welcome those of us joining online. We know if those streaming online at GhanaCop28.org, you go there and you're able to stream. You can share with your friends who are not here, and they can join us and listen to the conversation. Great. So this afternoon, and it's early morning, it's around 8:30 in Ghana this morning, and I'm sure some of our colleagues are joining. Even though today is Sunday, they'll be going to church. I'm sure they will join for the next 1.5 hours, and then they will zoom to church. I saw that one of the panelists, she was dressed for church, and as soon as she finished, she will be going to church. So today we are talking about landscape restoration. So we'll be discussing, we'll be sharing lessons and ideas about landscape restoration, but with particular emphasis on community-led initiatives. And most recently, there's been a lot of talk about restoration, forests, the role of forests in mitigating climate change. And as you are all aware, a lot of projects, initiatives, NBS, and other things happening within our communities focusing on restoration. But to what extent are these programs, projects, restoration initiatives addressing the fundamental needs of the people? That is what we'll be trying to unravel this afternoon. Just to set the context, and I'm sure 99.99% of us here, this is no news to you. We know that the climate is changing globally. It's getting hotter, warmer. In areas that is cold, it's getting colder. A couple of months ago, I was in London, and it had not snowed in London for a very long time. But last year, those of you who know, it snowed in London, and so you should know that something is changing. So the weather is changing, the climate is changing, and there's a need to act. And in trying to find solutions to the changing climate, one of the key weapons that have been identified is forests and the role that the forest plays, especially tropical forest. Tropical forest, as we have come to understand, plays diversity of roles. It can be effective in adapting, and it can also be a very effective mitigation tool. And tropical forest has over time now has become the target of most projects. People are coming to tropical countries to support in implementing nature-based solutions and implementing restoration programs, all towards restoring degrading forest in tropical regions. But what has been the focus and the direction of these restoration projects? Are they achieving the fundamental ask of these projects? And that is what we are here to look at. Not too long ago, the UN declared the next decade as the decade of restoration. And so most programs, most private sector entities, and those of you who have been following prior to this COP, the UAE and other countries started investing heavily in tropical countries, in Gabon, in Cameroon, buying large tracts of forest estates and conserving them. So there is this growing interest in tropical forests. But we also know that most of these tropical forests are found in developing countries. And most often than not, we are torn between balancing development against conservation. And in our countries, you realize that through our agricultural practices, we are indeed destroying some of the remaining tropical forests. So there is a need to restore some of the degraded, deforested areas, and that is where restoration comes in. Before I even continue, we need to be clear. Tree planting is different from restoration. And I have been in conversations where people equate plantations, going to plant monocultural teak plantations, and they are calling it restoration. It must be good for the climate. So it must have that element that will be good for the climate. And last but not the least, it must be good for biodiversity. So planting only eucalyptus might be good for climate, might also be good for the people in some way, but is it good for biodiversity? So an effective restoration program must meet these three elements. And this was designed by Clara. Clara is a well-recognized research institution that did this work. To conclude, before we go to our conversation, this is just to set the tone that what we are going to be talking about is not just going to plant trees, but making sure that in planting trees, you are identifying the needs of the people, and you are factoring in the needs of the people and also the need of climate and biodiversity into the work that we do. For a very long time now, and I know in Ghana, there are a lot of projects that are focused on NBS, nature-based solutions, that are supporting communities and all that, but you go into it and you realize that they are supplying them with exotic monocultural species. And in some instances, some forest reserves have actually been taken over by private developers, and they are planting large tracts of monocultural exotic species. Are these plantations really restoration, and are they meeting the needs of the people? Are they meeting the needs of the climate? Are they meeting the needs of biodiversity? That is the question that we will be trying to address. And in meeting the needs of the people, how are we incorporating people into our restoration programs? How are we incorporating communities? How are we incorporating the youth into these programs that we are doing? So that is the focus of today's dialogue. And we have an interesting team of panelists to help us to discuss this, to share lessons and ideas. To start with, there are some that will be joining us online and others that will be joining us in the room. I will first call to the stage our panelists who are here. I will start with Kwame Setre. Kwame Setre works for Tropenbos Ghana and has been working a lot on community-led restorations in the transition landscape of Ghana. So Kwame, can you please join us? The second panelist who will be joining us here, forgive me if I don't get the name correct, is Poja. I think I'll leave it there. I will not attempt the second name. Poja is from Nepal, and those of you who are foresters or who have done forestry, you know that when it comes to community forestry and that conversation, Nepal has had a very long history of community forestry. So we're excited to welcome Poja to the panel. And joining us online are two other panelists. One of the panelists is actually, if they can put on, panel, if you can put on your camera so that we see you. The first I will introduce is Samuel Ofori. Samuel works with One Tree Planted, WRI One Tree Planted. They are funding a lot of projects in Africa. They are leading the AFR 100 program in Africa. And so we are excited to have him because he is a project manager, he is a donor, and he can be able to give certain perspectives when it comes to incorporating communities in landscape restoration programs. So Samuel, you are welcome. Then the last panelist is Madame Rachel Jabin. She works with Trust Africa, and she's the Ghana country focal person for Trust Africa. They have also been doing a lot of work on restoration, and they are focusing on degraded mine sites, supporting communities to restore degraded mine sites. So we are also excited to welcome Rachel to the panel, and we'll be hearing from her some of her experiences and lessons from their work that they are doing in restoring degraded mine sites. So these are our panelists, and I am Obed Uso Ade. I will be moderating this session. Thank you very much. Whoa, great. So to start with, we will start with our panelists in the room. There is an echo. Hello, great, thank you. So we will start with our panelists in the room. Is there a problem? You want me to sit in the middle? Are we good? Excellent. So, Kwame, maybe in 2 minutes, you will tell us about yourself, because I didn't want to introduce you. Tell us about yourself and the work that you are doing in relation to landscape restoration. Maybe 2 minutes, just a brief summary of the work that you are doing.
Yeah, thank you, Obed. I'm Kwame Sechere, as you rightly said, and I work with Tropenbos Ghana as a senior project officer. So I will zoom in into Tropenbos Ghana, what we do. So Tropenbos Ghana is an NGO, an environmental NGO, and we've been operating in the forestry sector for about 2 decades now. Basically, Tropenbos Ghana, we have a mission. So our mission is to generate and also optimize forest benefits, and we use collaborative and participatory approaches. So Tropenbos Ghana, we have been involved in some initiatives that I would like to highlight. So the first one is a forest landscape restoration project. We've also been working on climate smart cocoa productions. We've also been involved in responsible business and finances, as well as some sustainable landscape management projects. Tropenbos Ghana, we have some unique thing in terms of our operations. We apply some kind of collaboration in terms of our actions. So we usually collaborate with institutions like academia, government, as well as some stakeholders. And mainly with regards to our work, what we do is mainly focusing on smallholder farmers as well as forest users and opinion leaders in order to achieve our target. So with regards to community-led landscape restoration, I'll highlight 2 work that I've been doing. I believe that will set the context straight. So the first one is EU landscape project that I'm working on. That is landscapes and environmental agility across the nation. So with this project, it applies an integrated landscape approach. So basically what this project does is that it supports government effort to conserve our biodiversity as well as improve livelihood of smallholder farmers. And we also put measures in terms of our climate change measures in different landscapes. So we are looking at the high forest zone, transition zone, and the savanna zone. Another project that also I'm working on is a project sponsored by the Dutch or the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. That is the Accessible Soil and Sustainable Environment. So with this project, what we are looking at is transforming or transition cocoa production in the form of that we all know drives deforestation, forest fragmentation, and degradation to one that is more of zero deforestation in order to lead to environmental and sustainable ways. So that is what I will say for now. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kwame. So Kwame is doing a lot of work, working with communities, working with opinion leaders as it relates to landscape restoration and all that. We'll go to Pooja. Pooja, also in 2 minutes, share with us some of the work you are involved in, whether in Nepal or other areas that you are working in, and especially as it relates to landscape restoration and youth and community involvement in landscape restoration.
Thank you. Hello and namaste everyone. I'm Pooja Pokhrel from Nepal, and I'm a master level student, and I'm currently doing my master's in forestry from Agriculture and Forestry University in Nepal. So along with this, I'm the delegation head of International Forestry Student Association, and I'm also working at the Gender and Land Focal Point in UNCCD Youth Caucus and president in Climate Nepal. So today I'll be talking about our organization, International Forestry Student Association, where I am the delegates of. And talking about International Forestry Student Association, it is one of the largest student association in forestry. So we are spread in around 160 plus countries, and we are spread in around 60 countries, and we have 160 plus LC. So these are the local committee that are in universities of forestry and related sciences. So normally we connect the student, empower them, and exchange the knowledge and make them able to participate in the different conferences, build the capacity, and promote their ability to represent themselves in different programs. And along with this, so it's a part of land restoration. So we are currently working in Ghana, Philippines. So we have two LCs in Ghana, so NARSA and RANARSA. So during the green project, just let me just confirm this once. So Green Ghana project. So during the Green Ghana project, these two LC has been actively participating in planting trees and promoting the restoration of land. So in Nepal also, during different environmental days, we the LC member from different LCs, we have 4 LCs in Nepal. So we are participating in spreading awareness to the community and people about the land restoration, and we are also involved in the plantation project as a part of the youth lead program. And we also have one program of mangrove plantation in Philippines. So the mangrove stand are planted in around 2 hectares. So they are normally done in 2 phases. The first phase is the plantation, and the second is the monitoring phase, and the project is currently in the monitoring phase. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Pooja. We will go to the panelists online. Maybe we'll start with Rachel. Rachel, are you there? If you can put on your camera so that we can see you, great. So, Rachel, we know you are working on restoration, especially around mined communities and areas. Can you share with us the work that you are doing and to what extent that you are involving communities in the restoration program that you are doing?
Hi, thank you, Obed, for the opportunity. I work with Trust Africa. I would want to give some background to Trust Africa. So Trust Africa is an independent Pan-African foundation, and our focus is working on pressing challenges within Africa. So we are spread across Africa. We have our headquarters in Senegal. And the key things we do is direct grant making to organizations. We focus on building capacity of organizations and movements. We are more interested in generating and managing knowledge for evidence-based capacity strengthening. We do a lot of convening multi-stakeholder dialogues because we believe that most issues need multi-sectorial approaches, and also mobilizing resources from like-minded donor partners to advance social justice, climate justice issues. And we have three main thematic areas we work in. That is equitable development, democracy and governance, and African philanthropy, where we leverage on our presence to be able to raise resources to support community action. So currently we are implementing one project. So we in about 9 African countries. For West Africa, we are working in Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire on a reclaim sustainability project, which is financed by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And for this particular one, what we seek to do is to contribute to inclusive and sustainable production trade in oil, palm, cocoa, and gold. So in working in these areas, what we are looking at decent working conditions, land rights, and forest protection. So what we've done is using 3 main strategies. One is the capacity strengthening, using multi-stakeholder dialogues to be able to do engagement, and also being able to go to the grassroots to support community level actions. So in the Western North and Western region, what we've done is that in order to ensure that the actions are owned by the community, we started by building the community capacity in terms of civil society, the media, women groups along the value chain with the mining sector. And so to be able to draw an action which is coming from them based on the challenges within the community. So using the problem tree, being able to come to the grassroots, what is actually affecting the deforestation in terms of pits which are left after illegal mining. And so how do we work towards it? So the community themselves coming up with an action plan. And then through this action plan, the key areas of focus. So we're looking at building our capacity in terms of advocacy, because our approach is more of sustainability and also ownership. So how do we build their capacity? If they want to do their own engagement, how are community members going to engage the assemblies, the key stakeholders within their various assemblies to be able to implement projects? And so one of the key things was within the Agona Nkwanta, one of the challenges was that for them, during tree planting processes, the assembly leads it, and then once it's done, there's no one to follow up and own those processes. And so how do community engage with the assemblies to be able to have that ownership in terms of who is responsible for what? How do they lead the youth within their communities to ensure that whilst planting is done, what strategy are they going to use as a community to be able to ensure that this goes a long way and it actually achieves its benefits? Another one is the reclaiming of land after illegal miners leave the pit. So one of the key challenges that was raised was that a lot of lives are being lost through that, because these pits are left and they are not reclaimed. And so once it rains, it's covered by water, and so people do not see that. And so how do communities work together? So one of the key actions that came out from this, which the community successfully led, was engaging the private sector, the ASM, the small mining associations, and also with the community and youth sitting together to find out how do we restore the particular land. So 16 acres of land was restored within the Agona Nkwanta region. We have the private sector providing cars to the community, and the chiefs coming together with the assembly to agree on the process of doing that. Then after the restoration of the land, planting trees and then leaving it for a fallow period of 2 years before it's reclaimed. This is also addressing the issue of farmers and other livelihood support for the community members who have lost their lands through this illegal mining. So, Obed, I'll leave it here and then we can discuss more once there are more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for telling us about the work that you are doing. I'm more interested in, you kept mentioning ownership, and I think we'll come back to that and the next round of questioning. Maybe to come back to you, Kwame. Kwame, in your work at the landscape level, through the projects and programs that you are doing, what has been some of the challenges you have faced, especially through your interventions with communities, the community-led initiative that you're doing? What has been some of the key challenges you have faced in being able to implement projects with communities, especially restoration projects with communities?
Yeah, thank you, Obed. So I will start with limited resources. You know, usually when you are working with communities, you are limited in terms of the scope. You know, example, like if you want to do maybe 100 hectares, 50 hectares within the project scope, and you start, and then you realize that they are showing interest, you are limited in terms of funds. So there is a need for us to, create indulgence so that like the communities, even if you are limited, they can also, do other things like, getting other source of funds, like maybe interventions, like maybe alternative livelihoods. I believe these can also help them, generate additional funds, for them to also get funding to continue. And another thing in terms of the challenges, I also make mention of bushfires. You know, at times you will spend a lot of funds restoring a large tract of areas. If you don't pay particular attention to bushfires, you will end up losing your whole project or your whole area. So one intervention, especially with the issue lane project that we've been doing, is to create fire volunteers. So we invest time, train volunteers so that like the gains that we've done in the project, at least it can be maintained and sustained. So this is also something that we've been doing. And another challenge, with regards to communities is that although we all know that communities, they are very versed with traditional knowledge and stuff, but when it comes to the technical aspects, they find it very challenging. So what we've been doing is that with regards to the restoration, we've been building their capacities in terms of nursery management. So at least they have an idea about how to raise seedlings and that. So that at least even if you are not there, they can do it on their own. So these are some of the things, the challenges, and how remedies that we've been putting in place. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kwame. So I'm talking about resources. I know Samuel is on the line, and Samuel, you manage resources. You are lucky to be at the level that you have resources and you are managing. So maybe just 2 minutes, you will tell us about what you do, and then in 1 minute, you will attempt to probably provide some form of response to the question or the challenge that has been raised by Kwame. So, Samuel, please tell us about yourself, what you are doing, and then of resources. Go ahead, we can hear you.
To plant a tree. And one key intervention that we use is the community-led restoration intervention. Moving to talk about what we are currently doing in Africa, which is the Terra Fund for AFR 100 initiative. The goal is to restore 100 million hectares of African landscapes by the end of 2030. So we are working with numerous planting partners or restoration champions, of which Obed is EcoCare Ghana is a major member. So I think since last year, middle of last year until now, we started with cohort 1, which is still ongoing for the next 5 years. And just by next year, January, we are beginning implementation of projects for cohort 2. And yes, again, Tropenbos Ghana, Kwame, I've already been in touch with Kwame. They're also going to be benefiting from this particular cohort line of projects. So in Ghana in particular, what we are doing is we are working with organizations like EcoCare Ghana, Tropenbos, and other non-for-profit organizations that are seeking to restore Ghanaian landscapes. And we have been working with them and also with the local communities, as well as the government institutions like the Forestry Commission, the Cocoa Board, the MOFA, as a general stakeholder activity to restore landscapes. We have realized that you cannot restore a particular site without involving any one of these members of the stakeholder team. So we make sure everyone is on board. And we already have success stories. Definitely the stories of EcoCare Ghana is our story as well. The stories of other organizations that are working in the first quarter are also our stories. So we have done amazingly well working together. And through the cohort 1, we've had some of the planting organizations or some of the non-for-profit organizations having to receive additional sources of funding to scale up their existing projects. So that is, like, for me, it's a success story for my country, because at the end of the day, it's more practical, and it's more relevant to see the actions being implemented even back home, and to see the results and the impact that it's creating in the societies that we all live in. And to touch a bit about Kwame's challenge or question about financial limitation or resources limitation, I think Yeah, this is a challenge. I think even with COP28, it has been a major discussion that has been going on. There's a need for finance to come in every now and then to promote restoration of our local landscapes. Without it, we cannot undertake these projects, or we cannot see the future that we are all looking at. So once we planted with the BRI and Realize Impact, we receive donor funds, which we also channel to the planning partners or the restoration champions that we are working with locally. And for example, I can tell that we, from the first cohort that we had from the Terra Fund for AF 100, we have about 3 organizations that have the opportunity to scale up their projects, which means they have the opportunity to receive extra funding from us to improve or to go on with their restoration goals. So yes, there are limitations when it comes to receiving funds, but what we have been working more closely on is to build trust with our planting partners or with our restoration champions. Where there is trust built in the first year or two, then we can see the need to get more funding to support them going forward. And this has been possible, as I mentioned, for 3 organizations already, and we look forward to even developing more partnerships with our existing partners and even newer partners that will come on board later. So I think I'll end here and then give it back to you, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. So probably we'll go back to Poja and Rachel. Now the funding issue has been addressed. So what other challenges working with communities and youth in restoration? What other challenges have you encountered in your work on the ground?
Thank you for the question. So for us, can you unmute this? Okay. So for us, we have already involved in the program, and normally seeing the challenges, the foremost challenges is the site-specific information. It is really hard to get the site-specific information and the site-specific plantation preparation and policy. And along with this, we work in the plantation, and there is really lack of monitoring and evaluation in every part of the plantation project. So until and unless we focus on the monitoring and evaluation, so the success cannot be measured. So, and in case of Nepal also, I have seen a lot of cases where they are focused only in the increasing. Like, let's, for example, we are planting thousands of trees. So what is the result? How many of them are still alive when we go after the 1 year? So that one is the challenges. Along with this, as a young people, we normally get hard to, it is really hard to get the acceptance of our project. They really trust us in our ability to lead the project successfully. So that is another challenge. And along the resources, technical and funding are always the challenges for us.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Rachel. Rachel, I know with Trust Africa, you are both a grant institution and also an implementing institution. So maybe you don't have a problem with funding that much. But beyond funding, what have been some of the challenges you have encountered in your restoration programs, especially working with communities and landowners on the ground?
One of the major issues is about social, they are more of socio-economic factors. So there's economic pressures and livelihood concerns that take precedence over environmental considerations, because you have communities who want to prioritize short-term economic gains over the long-term restoration benefits that we are trying to engage them with. And so for the short term, we are going to do mining, we leave it, and then we have our resources. And then you are thinking about reclaiming land, which we are going to leave fallow for a certain period of time. And so that is where we've had a lot of challenges in trying to get commitments on that angle to show the long-term benefits of restoration. And then one other challenge is about the land tenure issues. So you have complex land tenure systems, and so there are always disputes arising. That's allocation of the use of the land for restoration, and so there's unclear ownership. That sometimes leads to conflict. And what we've been doing in that area is working, collaborating with Colandef, with a sub grant, supporting in terms of increasing awareness and knowledge around the land tenure systems, engaging the community chiefs, the traditional authorities who own, are the custodians of the land. How do we have land champions on land issues within the communities, and then how we are also working with government in terms of issues around the reclamation bond, the artisanal small scale mining associations. How do we dialogue around these issues to be able to appreciate where the government is coming from in terms of the bond, and also trying to address the issue concerns of the artisanal small scale mining, who think that this is a huge sum of amount which can go into which can support them in their current line of work. So how do we dialogue? And so going into next year, one of the key things that we'll be working together with Solidaridad West Africa on is looking at the reclamation bond. How do we make it more effective? Because this has been passed for a while. How are we going to follow up, ensure that this is done? And then at the community level, how do they become the watchdogs? But the issue is being able to get communities to understand the long-term importance of land restoration, and then overlooking the short term and how we are going to work together to be able to resolve these issues. So this is one of the main challenges: land tenure issues and the long-term restoration with community commitments.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ray. A bit of time for last round of interventions, and this time we are going to concentrate on how are you able to ensure that community-led restoration also focus on addressing the issues of climate change, climate resilience, and to what extent does the communities embody these issues in the work that they do. So maybe I'll start with you, Kwame. In the work that you are doing on restoration and within the transition zone and also in the cocoa landscapes, what strategies are you using to get the communities to actively participate, and especially to try to address the problem of climate change and climate resilience? How are you doing that? Strategies.
So thank you, Obed. So I will start with community engagement, like in the inception phase. You know, when you are doing a project, it's very important that you first engage the community so that at least you get their buy-ins. You know, they will give you some pros and cons where they want to do the restoration and stuff, so that at least it will not create any future problems. So that is a very essential thing that you have to take into consideration. Another thing that you have to also consider is in terms of participatory approach in terms of decision making. So it should be more of inclusivity. So when you are making a decision, you have to reach out to them so that at least they give in, this is where we want to do the restoration inside. And also you consider the gender issue also. So like specify the roles, the males and females, what are they going to do? It's not like it's going to be only male-centered. These are some of the things that you have to consider. Another aspect that you can also look at is the cultural sensitivity, because in our settings, it's important that you consider some taboo days, because if you are doing restoration and you don't give due respect to their taboo days, during those days they will not be working. So you pay attention, respecting their taboo days and stuff. So I believe that considering these issues, it will help the community achieve that community-led restoration that we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kwame. So maybe also to you, Poja, how are you able to achieve that, to get the communities to be interested? I mean, Kwame has shared some of the experiences from Ghana. In Nepal, what are some of the strategies that you also adapt to get communities to be interested and to be part of the program?
So in Nepal, Nepal is known as one of the pioneer countries for community forestry. So in Nepal, the community forestry officially started in between 1978. So since then, we have been successfully implementing project, and community forestry is regarded as one of the successful program in Nepal. So till now, there are around 22,500 community forestries in Nepal, and you all know that like Nepal has already achieved the success target of achieving 45% of the forest cover. So the credit is also given to the community forestry because it was totally impossible without their engagement and support. So uh, if we engage the community in landscape restoration and forest management, the feeling of ownership and responsibility obviously forces and help to achieve the certain goal that we have designed to achieve. So in this way, we can say that like the community-led forest project had been successfully implemented in Nepal. And before the community forestry project in Nepal, like um, the government has taken the forest ownership in their hand, and the forest was devastatingly degraded and deforested to a large land. So, realizing the importance of community engagement and community ownership and the support from the community, the forest were hand over to the community, and then in this way, the community forestry is started in Nepal, and since then, the result has been always positive.
Thank you very much, Pooja. I know, Samuel, you might want to leave early, so I'll come to you before I go to Rachel. So, Samuel, for you as a manager of a program or a project that is giving financing or grants to other organizations to implement community-led restoration projects, what has been some of the challenges that you as a donor or as a financing institution, what have been some of the challenges with respect to community-led restoration initiatives, especially as it relates to financing? What has been some of the challenges you have encountered? Because there's a lot of conversation that has gone on that when you give money, you invest money into community-led initiatives, um, um, you don't get the results that you need because when it comes to community ownership of things, it's like everybody says we own it. Nobody really takes ownership and takes the initiative actively. What has been your experience as a donor or as a financing institution with this kind of issue? Samuel.
Much, Obed. As I mentioned earlier, we work with local-based organizations like EcoCare, Tropenbos, and many others. And most of the time, or actually all the time, the funds for the implementation of these projects are channeled to them. So what we usually would expect is to continually have a reporting system or reporting period where we get to know what is happening, get to receive updates of the projects, and then also relay them to the donors who provide us the funds. So one key challenge that we have had is to verify verification. Basically, there's a need for us to verify what has been reported. There's a need to verify what the funds has been provided for locally. So um, a requirement that we give to our planning partners is usually we have a system that every 6 months there's a need to report, and one way to verify is to receive from them geotag photographs. So photographs that have geographic coordinates attached to them that can help us to verify that these are pictures showing us the up-to-date information about the trees planted. Another requirement is to receive from them polygons of the restored sites or the sites being restored. So this also helps us to get to see more or less what is happening on the ground. And because often times we have these projects being led by communities where our planning partners or the local organizations are also working with them closely, there's a need for them to provide us this information more or less every 6 months. And we realize that locally there's a limitation of our communities with how to use technology, how to take these geotag photos, how to take these polygons or coordinates. So this has been a challenge, but it's been very good for us to realize that we can bridge this gap. We can work with our local planning partners, and I think Obed can testify about a month and a half ago, we had a training on the ground with the local communities where there was a training on how to take polygons of their planted sites. If these are, for example, farmers, they're able to take polygons of the farms that they are restoring. And we have realized that this has been a major breakthrough because at the end of the day, we need to verify what has been planted or even what has been reported. And one way that we can do that is to make sure there are factual evidence to provide to whoever is providing us the funds to disperse back to the ground. And I think going forward, we are looking forward to more and more simpler ways that we can work together with our local communities, with our local partners to improve the monitoring, reporting, and verification processes.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Maybe the last question to you, Rachel, before we go to the panel, go to the audience, if they also have questions or experiences to share. So, Rachel, I am going to go into species. You are doing restoration of degraded mine sites. And one of the challenges when you are working with communities is about the duration, the rotation of trees that we are planting. Whether or not they'll be interested in being part of the program also depends on how old or how long it will take for them to get benefit from the trees or the restoration programs that they are doing. So from your experience working within communities that have mined and degraded mine site, what has been some of the issues or the lessons you can share with us with respect to selection of species and involving communities in selecting which species to use, and what are some of the lessons that you can share with us on that? Thank you very much, Rachel. Rachel,
Yes, I'm here, but can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so mentioned earlier, one of our key strategies has been the multi-stakeholder dialogues that we've been holding. And so first, engaging the communities to identify the issue, which they can relate to, which was more of the exposure to the risks of flooding from the mine pits that are left. And so with that, engaging the assemblies and then getting the communities themselves to lead this discussion and working with the traditional authorities within their various communities. They have the engagement, so directly with the assemblies and the forestry commission within their communities, they have those dialogues, and then based on the advice and expertise of the commission, then the community's role has been accepting and then leading and then working on more on the monitoring of that. And so for the mechanisms that we have used, it's once the the experts within that role, that's the forestry commission and the assemblies, once there's time for planting and then reclamation, the advice, based on their advice, the communities have engagements with them. And then once they take up that role to do the monitoring, we have the mechanism where the community members do the monitoring and the reporting of the changes, or in terms of the direct monitoring of the trees that are planted. And then based on that, there are discussions with the assembly on how long that is going to take. And then in terms of ownership and what can be done with the land after reclamation. And so that process has really helped in terms of working with the already existing structures and systems so that there is some long-term ownership and sustainability in the approach, because we will probably, as funding is limited, would probably just come in and then leave the community. And so once we are not there, what structures are we going to use? And so we try to work with the already existing structures, provide that support and capacity for direct engagement so that work is done as business as usual without us interfering with the whole process. So that has been one of the core strategies that we have used. Also working with the traditional authorities, this also brings some sort of ownership on the side of community, the traditional authorities, where people see the importance and the benefits of the whole action that is being taken place. And so as much as possible, we always try not to have direct engagement, but just support by facilitating the processes for the existing structures to work. So that has been our approach in doing this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. So what we are going to do now is to come to the audience, if any of you have stories or you have lessons from the work that you have done on the ground, and I mean, at the back there, I saw that there's been a lot of mangrove restoration and other things that others have done. Are there lessons that you also want to share with respect to working with communities in community-led restoration programs? So we'll come to the floor. Do we have a microphone that can go there, or we will use this one? So they will come here and share. Okay. So Madame Mercy, please, you will come here and share with us lessons from community-led restoration. Like we said, it's a dialogue, so we are involving everybody. Thank you, Madam.
I hope okay. That's too loud now. Okay, so my interest is with the work that Rachel is doing on restoration of degraded mine areas, because Tropenbos also did a project where we were doing also the degraded restoration of degraded lands. And what I noticed was about how expensive it is to restore, mining lands. I don't know whether, Rachel, you have also had this experience. After doing the restoration, then I really, it sets me thinking that how much minerals was extracted from that land, and then how much we have to put back in restoring the land. We were planning to do a cost analysis of, the gains and then what you put back to restore. I don't know whether, Rachel, you have taken the lead to do that analysis, but that is something that we are still discussing of carrying out an analysis into how much gold was extracted from the land, the beneficiaries, and then even how long the gains has been from extracting the gold. And then you really match it with how much you are putting back into the land. Getting the land even prepared, using bulldozers, filling the pits, bringing the topsoil, because during the mining they remove the topsoils. Bringing it back is very costly. So Rachel, I can see you haven't left yet. Can you tell us whether you have done that analysis, and then whether it is something that you plan to do, because we want to really get some partners to really do that analysis to inform, policy, and then inform people who are into mining how much it takes to restore a parcel of land that has been degraded due to mining. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. I don't know if Rachel would want to respond. If not, we will go to the floor and take more reactions. Rachel, would you want to respond?
And something we haven't started any research in this, but this is a discussion we've had backdoor about this last year when we held in collaboration with Colandef and other NGOs, the first national land conference in Ghana. I think this came in very strongly from the ministry, where they talked about how much has been spent on reclaiming land where people have not owned up. And then we're really discussing this on the background, thinking, so if government has to spend this much, what can be done with the land? If they are owning the land now, I mean, how much resources have been used? What was the gains for us in terms of royalties, taxes? Exactly those discussions. We've also had this, but we haven't taken it to the next step. So I think this is interesting, something we can start, we can have a discussion on going forward after this discussion. And for us, we've also thought that's one of the reasons why we are thinking of going into discussions with the Lands Commission, the Minerals Commission about the bond, the reclamation bond, on going forward, how this can be how this can work out very effectively. Because if government has to still own this course where the resources are going to someone, how do we work around it? How do we make it more efficient in terms of the processes and the procedures on how it works? So this is very interesting area. We haven't looked at it yet, but I would want to continue the discussion with you, with Tropenbos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. I think that is one of the interesting things we wanted to happen here. We wanted to make linkages, and I'm happy that Rachel and Madam are coming together to take it forward. Yes, I see my professor wants to also give an intervention. So, Prof, after Prof, you will come. Although, sorry.
Thank you very much. This is not a question, it's a comment, and it's about the distinction that you try to give between restoration and tree planting. And it's an omission that is happening everywhere. It's not only in Ghana. If you look at the literature, people are using that word anyhow. And I think the drive behind that is that restoration is very attractive. And so everybody thinks that if you can use it, then you get a lot of attention. But I think to be able to correct that, we need to document and show people the difference between restoration and tree planting. And so for those of you who have already started, I would suggest that you get very good baseline data to show people that at the beginning of the exercise, this is how the situation looks like. This is the process that we go through. And you realize that if you are restoring forest, the difficulties you go through are completely different from somebody who is just planting trees. So we need to also capture all those challenges and difficulties, and then at the end be able to show the results and convince people that, hey, this is the way to go if you really mean restoration. And these are the input that you are required to put it in. Otherwise, we keep using it and then we deceive ourselves. If you look at our own national policy, we have restoration there. But I think when they were writing it, what they had in mind was tree planting. Okay, so let's work on that and make sure that we can correct the errors.
Thank you very much, Prof. Is someone still on the line? Samuel, you are investing a lot of money into restoration. And I think Prof is bringing a very interesting dimension that if you are still on the line, will you be interested to support? I mean, because I know I take money from you, I know, but there are limitations to what we can use your resources for. Will you and your partners be amendable to probably supporting to document that baseline kind of study to be able to really make that argument of doing proper restoration as against planting? Will TerraMatch and AFR 100 be willing or be amendable to further conversations around this issue? After you, we will come to my lady here.
Obed, and this is a key issue that we have on the ground. And as a team, TerraFund for AFR 100, one requirement that we give to every application that we receive is to make sure that whatever restoration intervention or restoration intervention that is being undertaken, there's a need to go beyond just monoculture. So we highly promote biodiversity. And Tropenbos can attest to that. With the new cohort that is coming in, we have data to be provided on trees restored, not just trees planted, but trees restored. And what we capture we make sure is being applied here is the success in when it comes to survival rate. So we capture highly the survival rate and not just planting trees, because at the end of the day, we don't want to just say we planted 1,000 trees and then we do not know how many survived. So yes, and as you have mentioned, we have been working together with the BRI, which is a very strong organization when it comes to research, and already there's yeah, there's work ongoing about these kind of baseline information and baseline procedures that needs to be provided to our planning partners. And we are happy to collaborate with our local planning partners to bring in even the local ecological knowledge, what they have on the ground, because we realize that, for example, when it comes to restoration, there's a lot of things that are happening locally that someone on a different landscape might not experience. So they need to bring all ideas, all knowledge together, and then we can work together to develop a very robust material or document that can guide us going forward.
Samuel. Yes, we are going back to the floor. The lady had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Obed. Please, it's a scenario and then a question for all the panelists. So, okay, so you're working on a forest restoration project in the community, but then with the entry point, you happen to engage the community, they accepted you, you shared the project idea, the outcomes, you even shared some alternate livelihood they have to get as in engaging with the project. But then fast forward to the implementation, they are not going as discussed or as planned. So my question is, what are the strategies that you would put in place to bring the community on board? Because you bring in a forest restoration project for community members who are likely to benefit from the other alternate livelihood that will come out of it, but they've now moved away from assisting in implementing the project and doing their own thing. And now this is having a negative impact on your project in terms of labor, because you were looking at them getting involved in the project, but now they don't want to work on the project and going out to do other things. Now you have to go to other community and bringing people from other communities. You are going to pay for transport, you are going to pay for labor. Meanwhile, they are living in the community and it wouldn't have even brought in the transport costs in that. So what are the strategies that you put in place to bring them back on board, to make them understand how important the restoration project is for them and for you as well? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you didn't introduce yourself, so we didn't. Your name, please.
Sorry, my name is Priscilla, and I'm from Ghana. I work with SYN.
Thank you very much. That's an interesting question. We have a lot of experience here and also online, so I will not even attempt to answer that since we have panelists here. Kwame, you seem to be working a lot on the ground, working with farmers, working with communities, and she has given a very, very, very practical challenge that we all face. At least I know in my days as on the ground, I face some of these challenges. So I don't know if you can support her, help her with some of the strategies that you use to overcome this, especially apathy on the part of communities. When you start projects with them, they start nicely, and then when some of them have gotten what they need, they kind of abandon the project, and then you are left stranded. What are some of the ways to, first of all, minimize the incidences of apathy even happening? And once they happen, what are the strategies you can use to address them? I'm putting your head on the chopping board. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Thank you, Obed. So what you just outlined is a very practical scenario. I also give you a practical operation, how we operate. So in terms of to avoid such incidents, so what we've been doing is once you engage with the community, tell them about your intentions, blah, blah. So the next action is it's not a one-stop action. You know, with time, you do follow-up trainings so that at least it keeps them in line with your objectives and outputs that you want to achieve. So this is some of the strategies that we've been doing. So day in and day out, maybe within 3 months or quarter, we do a follow-up training to build their capacities so that they are still in line with the actions. If it reaches the level whereby they are no more corresponding, there are some drastic measures that we take. We just, exempt them from there and look for other communities. So this is also another drastic measure, but usually we try to, continually build their capacities and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rachel, are you still on the line? So you are doing restoration in mine areas. And I'll come to you, Poja, for experiences from Nepal. But I want to come to you, Rachel. Within your mining areas and the restoration work that you're doing, this issue of apathy on the parts of communities when it comes to participation and continuous engagement in community-led restoration programs, what strategies do you use to overcome some of these problems or challenges? Yes, Rachel.
Thank you. I think maybe our strategy is working. As I mentioned from the beginning, we have the problem-driven approach where we get the communities to draw their own action plans, which we are not involved. We only guide them and give them the context and background to deliver that. And as part of that, we engage them to find people to help in the whole process. And so in terms of awareness creation about the project, we use the community radio stations, where it's the same community benefiting from the agenda or discussions to enrich their own radio discussions. And then we work with the traditional authorities who are experiencing the risk and the challenges from this flooded pit. And so in that, what is their role and how they are going to help? And then we link them to the private sector within the communities who have resources to help the community to do that. And the assembly coming in. So our role has always been the facilitating process. And then so far, with a few successes that we've had, it worked for us. And so I think that I would only suggest that it's continuous engagement, as Kwame has said, continuously engaging them, bringing them back to the drawing board to see why this is supposed to be done, and then letting them know the benefits, always telling the benefits of what we are doing to them. And as you realize that if it's going to, is a long term approach or period project, then you need to find in ways to get them more interested in the whole process. Because for them, they're also looking at the economic gains. What are they losing in doing this? So something that you probably would want to put in some sorts of incentives to be able to keep them support to support the whole process. So I think that is what I'll be able to share based on our experience working with the community.
Thank you very much, Kwame. I think I also have a hand up there. Sir, thank you very much. And of course, I also have one or two experiences to share when, with respect to dealing with apathy. So later I will share them.
Thank you. Some comments and some suggestions. Yes, Rachel was making that to be contacting the Minerals Commission with respect to the Reclamation Board. Reclamation Board is being administered by the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm Michael Sandwali at the Mining Department of the EPA. And the first person who made a submission was talking about the cost. Yes, it will be difficult to estimate how much gold was taken out from the illegal mining sites. With the legalized ones, especially large scale, that one, you do exploration, and so you know how much gold you are taking. And then you know what the degraded areas are, and based on that, you do the estimation for the bond. But with the illegal ones, that is not done. Even now, we've worked out, and then the small-scale miners are going to start doing that. But with the illegal sites, it will be very, very difficult. And so one of the things that we do is to get the communities buy-in with respect to even the large-scale restorations or reclamation. Because if you say you are going to do afforestation and they want to farm, you will use the money and do the afforestation, and they'll come and cut down the trees and plant their crops. So we get them together with the large-scale mines, get them involved from day one. And so you can even apportion some of the plots to some of the community members and let them start working from day one on that plot if they want to do agriculture. So that is one of the strategies we use for the large scale, and it's working very, very well. And I think it can be replicated to some of these areas that the degraded areas or large, small, illegal sites, because nobody owns them. The land has an owner, but until you get on before you know, so that we can say, okay, we want to do agriculture here. What type of agriculture? If it's afforestation and things like that. Because we have a reclamation security agreement at the EPA which has a criteria for which type of restoration you want to carry out. And so maybe the council reach out to us, and then we can share all those things with them and see how we can restore most of those degraded areas in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And like I always say, it's good. It's a good platform. We are making connections. I know Rachel will reach out to you since they are very interested in following up on the restoration bond discussion. Any other comments? If not, I can see that we are almost getting closer to our time. Maybe I'll give opportunity to Pooja. There's been a lot of talk about apathy, and when it comes to community-led restoration and how communities will start in the middle, they will start showing a little bit of apathy and become disinterested. What has been the strategy in Nepal? What, if you have some to share, and even if beyond Nepal, because when you were introducing yourself, you work outside Nepal and other areas. How do you deal with that problem? Or have you had instances of that problem, and how did you resolve that? Then we'll come and finish off with Samuel. Since you are a donor and you are always requiring a lot of reporting and all that, in the reports you've been receiving, what has been some of the strategies some of the organizations have been using to deal with this? If you can also share with us, then we can end the session on that.
So in Nepal, for community forest, so a certain part of the forest is given to the community. So they form the user group, community forest user group, and manage all the activities. So they prepare the operational plan, work plan, and work on basis of that. So for the community forest, and they are given certain fund, and the ownership and responsibility to manage the for certain forest that is designed as the community forest is totally on the hand of a community forest user group, and there is a certain percent of benefit sharing that is given to the community from community forest. So with the feeling of ownership, they that is the main strategy, that giving the feeling of ownership and giving the ownership role to the community, so that they can take care of everything and manage it properly. So that is one of the major strategy. And along with this, different capacity building programs for women, and providing incentive for children, their children to study, and to the poor. So in this way, they are managed to work and integrated them in the community related project.
Wow. Thank you very much, Pooja. And Samuel, you get the last word. Well, because I know you receive a lot of reports from different organizations that you are funding. And in going through the reports, what are some of the things you have picked, the strategies that some of these organizations or champions, as you call them, restoration champions, are using to address the problem of apathy, working with communities? So you get the last word.
But because of them, I'll just give one classic example of an experience that one of our restoration champions shared with us. So this is an organization that is restoring mangroves in the Volta region. And one of the sites, which upon initial engagement with the local communities and the leadership, was released to them to restore. Later on in the period of restoration, another group came that mentioned that they are actually the owners of this particular land or site, so they need to do what is necessary. Otherwise, then that would impede the progress of the project. And one lesson that this organization shared with us was that, yes, they had to go back to engage these two parties as a way to create the peace, to create a sustainable working together, and do what was necessary. As we may know, locally, there's a need to do what the local chiefs would require of you as a way to make sure that every member in the family or clan is satisfied to make sure that you can continue with the project. And this is a key lesson that we as a team also have learned, and we make sure that every project that we are funding has adequate land tenure agreements with whoever is within the land ownership group or family, and not to bypass anyone. Because at the end of the day, we are looking forward to the sustainability of the project. Even if you've done the restoration, usually per our agreement, we go for a period of 6 years with an organization when it comes to implementing our projects. But a project may have gone through the 6 years, but maybe after the 6th year, what can happen? So what we always make sure is that there is that effective collaboration, effective agreement, effective understanding between all the parties involved. And this is a lesson that we are even sharing with our other planting partners or restoration champions to make sure that such a situation does not ripple or occur in other parts of the country and even beyond. So yeah, this maybe just on top of that, there was a situation where an applicant wanted to plant. So as I mentioned, we have a requirement for biodiversity. Of course, we make way for the planting of maybe cash crops or certain maybe non-indigenous species, but we give very high limitation to that and focus more on the local species. And this organization wanted to plant more of cashew as against the local trees. And we realized that no, going forward, this can impede the goals that we are looking at, the climate change mitigation and adaptation goals, the goal of biodiversity, the goal of even the social and economic development of the community. So we needed to sit down, have further discussions to make sure that there is that agreement to bring down the number of cashew trees to be restored or planted and give more room for for the local trees. And again, this was without the involvement of the local community. So this organization had to go back, have negotiations, have discussions with the chiefs, with the owners of the lands, the farmers, to make sure that there is that agreement and that sustainable partnership in the next years. So this is something that we are still learning. I think one very complicated system we have in Ghana is the land tenure system, which cannot easily or fully be eradicated or let me say dealt with. But once there is that more bringing on board of everyone who is relevant to the system, I think we can get to the point where we can have our projects being sustainable even beyond the period of time of our agreement.
Hi, great. Thank you very much, Samuel. And on that note, we will bring this session to a close. But before we go, I would like to thank our panelists, especially those online. I know today is Sunday, and in Ghana, if you know Ghana, you know very religious people. They're supposed to be going to church, and they joined us. So I know some of them are going to rush back to second service. And so thank you very much for joining us online to be part of this conversation. Samuel and Rachel, thank you very much. We appreciate your contributions. And thank you very much, Pooja, for sharing with us your experiences from Nepal and other countries. And Kwame, thank you for bringing us to the ground, giving us the practical field challenges and how we are able to overcome those challenges. And everybody here, thank you very much for sticking with us. I know when it comes to COP, 1.5 hours staying at one place is a problem. Everybody, we keep roaming and moving. So thank you very much, especially the SYND babies. Thank you for sticking with us. We appreciate your presence here. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the program. I think we will take a group picture. It has become almost a tradition at the Ghana Pavilion that after every event, we take a group picture.